So, you probably remember William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily, right? It's that classic, kind of creepy Southern Gothic tale. It's the story of Emily Grierson, the last of this wealthy, aristocratic family who lives and dies in her decaying mansion. And of course, everyone remembers that shocking secret at the end. But what if the biggest clue wasn't hidden in some dusty bedroom, but in the town's social structure itself?
Yeah, you've got the decaying mansion, you've got the shocking secret. But what if we reframe this whole mystery? What if the key isn't really about Emily's psychology, but about her economic reality? What if her whole strange life wasn't about love and madness, but about class, power, and a society that was completely in turmoil? Okay, let's dive into this.
To really get what's going on here, we need to look at this classic story through a totally new lens. It's like a special tool that can unlock a hidden layer of meaning that, believe it or not, has been sitting there this whole time. Okay, so that tool is called Marxist literary criticism. And look, I know, don't let the name intimidate you. It's actually pretty simple. It's just a way of analyzing a story by looking at how things like social class, money, and power structures totally shape the characters and, the main conflicts in the plot.
Probably the easiest way to think about it is like this. You're putting on a special pair of glasses, and when you look through them, the psychological drama kind of fades into the background for a minute. Instead, what pops into super sharp focus is the role that class, power, and money play in absolutely everything that happens.
All right, so we've got our new glasses on, and the very first thing that snaps into focus is how Emily's entire identity wasn't really defined by who she was as a person, but by where she came from. Let's dig into this whole idea of tradition, duty, and class to really get how her society saw her.
And the story itself gives us this massive clue. The townspeople, they don't describe Emily as, a person. They call her a tradition, a duty, and a care. Now just stop and think about that for a second. That's not how you talk about your neighbor. That's how you talk about a monument or some kind of institution.
So looking at it this way, Emily stops being just this one lonely woman. She becomes a symbol. She's basically a living monument to that old Southern aristocracy, right? A constant reminder of a social order that was fading away fast. And she's this obligation that the town feels they owe her, all because of her family's old prestige.
But here's the twist. That high-class status, it was a total double-edged sword. It basically created what you could call a prison of privilege, trapping her inside the very thing that was supposed to make her special.
I mean, on the one hand, her class gave her huge privileges. It guaranteed she got special treatment, it made people feel this weird mix of awe and pity for her, and it even put her above the law, really. But that same status is what trapped her. It cut her off from everyone, it stopped her from being able to adapt to a changing world, and it just made her feel more and more alienated from everyone around her.
And that right there, that feeling, brings us to a core concept in this way of thinking: alienation. See, Emily's loneliness wasn't just some personal, psychological thing. No, it was a direct result of her place in society. She was basically a stranger in her own town because of these deep class divisions that defined her entire life.
Okay, so if Emily is a symbol for this dying class, then what does that make all her bizarre behavior? Well, when you look at it through this lens, it's not just madness. It's actually a form of resistance, a really desperate and ultimately doomed attempt to fight against the future. And the most powerful symbol for all of this? It's her house. It was once this grand, imposing building, a total statement of her family's power. But by the time of the story, it's just decaying. It's an eyesore among eyesores. It's the perfect metaphor, isn't it? The old aristocracy just clinging to its faded glory while the modern world literally grows up all around it.
And if you look at her actions, they form this really clear pattern of defiance. First, she refuses to pay taxes, basically rejecting the authority of the new government. Then she ignores the new postal system, like she's literally refusing to be just another number. She even denies the reality of her own father's death because she's clinging to the source of her old status. And then the most shocking act of all, keeping the body of Homer Barron. And who is he? A working-class guy from the North. He represents everything her old world wasn't, and her final horrifying act is to possess and control this threat to her fading power. Okay, so let's pull all of this together now. By looking through our, Marxist glasses, we can suddenly see two totally different ways to read this story. We can move way beyond just seeing it as a personal tragedy. Let's put the two views side by side. It's pretty stark. The traditional reading? It's a Gothic tragedy about a lonely, traumatized woman, But the Marxist reading? It's an allegory for an entire dying social class. In the first view, Emily's motivation is just madness. In the second, it's this fierce resistance to social and economic change. And the townspeople? They go from being just gossipy neighbors to a society that's actively keeping these class lines in place. All of a sudden, the story isn't just a personal tale of love and secrets, it becomes this powerful critique of class struggle and the decay of history.
So here's the absolute crucial point. When we look at it through the lens of class and money, A Rose for Emily stops being just about one woman's sad, tragic life. It becomes the story of the collapse of an entire class-based society, all wrapped up in this one stubborn, isolated, and ultimately tragic figure.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? What stories from our world today, stuff in the news, in our own communities, even in the movies and shows we watch, what would look completely different if we put on these same glasses and looked at them through this lens of class, power, and money? What hidden forces might we suddenly start to see?